Elon Musk and the American people wanted DOGE cuts, and they just might get them. It only took public outrage to get there.
Kind of amazing when Washington seems to work like it's supposed to instead of waiting 4 years to act on this kind of feedback.
Vladimir Putin hits the gas pedal on the Ukraine war, but is he driving towards World War III or a stronger negotiating position?
Wait a minute, Trump criticized Russian aggression? I've been reliably informed that he's a Putin puppet.
Well, Caitlin Clark might be the biggest name in the WNBA, but does she have a mandate to take the league to new heights?
Not if the WNBA has anything to say about it.
You could say this is a must-watch show. Blaze News The Mandate starts right now. Good evening, Patriots. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Blaze News Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Jill, it's a big, beautiful day in the news cycle, and here at Blaze Media.
It's one time in our lives where we actually thought that we were going to get a big spending cut in a meaningful way. Now, this battle is playing out in three phases. It begins with Elon Musk airing his disappointments in the lack of spending cuts in the big, beautiful bill. Let's watch.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Well, then last night, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller took to X to try and clean some things up. He wrote the big, beautiful bill. It's not an annual budget bill, so DOGE cuts would actually have to be done through an appropriations bill. Now, that all makes sense. Today, we get word from Politico that the White House will send several DOGE cut requests to the House GOP next week amid an online pressure campaign. So they are listening. Let's see if our DC insider Chris Bedford is listening. Do you hear all of the talk out there that's happening? Where does the spending battle go from here, Chris?
Well, still the White House's focus is going to be entirely on reconciliation. That's where the administration's agenda lies. That's where their ability to do all the different things that they actually campaigned on lie. Now, the massive cuts to the federal government, which has been something that we've been promised by Republican politicians since, I guarantee you, every person on here and every person who's watching was born without ever actually seeing them delivered. Well, that's another matter entirely. The rescissions practice that Stephen Miller is talking about is a good one. That's one that would allow the Senate to be able to reclaim money that it has appropriated. So discretionary spending, excuse me. So we take that back with just 51 votes. Of course, those 51 votes would have to include the former leader, Mitch McConnell. They would have to include Murkowski. They would have to include Collins. They'd have to include Tillis. They'd have to include any other range of completely and totally squishy Republicans who don't actually want to see anything done on this. And, if you question the authenticity of politicians, take a look at the fact that we've been promised this. Take a look at the fact that some of us grew up reading Barry Goldwater and other people grew up reading Ron Paul. And none of those ideas have actually really been executed on, aside from the foreign policy of Goldwater we saw with Reagan. None of the domestic stuff has really been capitalized on as far as the deficit goes. You have seen the changing of the civil rights architecture used to actually attack opponents of freedom and attack the opponents of the left under the Trump administration to defend Christianity and other persecuted religions. That's all great. That's actually what I think the president ran on. But this would be the first time you start to see real and meaningful cuts. I mean, if you want to be blackpilled on the subject, keep in mind how long the Department of Defense has been legally mandated to submit to an audit. It was well over a decade, but it's never happened. And no one in the Hill actually wants it to happen, except for a few backbenchers. So it doesn't. But if you get Elon Musk who, despite rumors, is not withdrawing from politics. He's just not going to be full-time in Washington, D.C. If you get the online interest and the grassroots interest that has been sparked for the first time since the Tea Party by Musk's efforts and others' efforts, by Russ Vought's efforts, by what Trump has done with the Department of Education and other places, and especially USAID, you combine all that, you can actually create enough pressure on these people, some of whom are actually up for re-election this year. Some people, like Tom Tillis, have to face a primary early next year. They're susceptible to pressure, and that would be an excellent thing to see this stuff actually codified. Of course, in reconciliation, it's just not really a possibility. There are too many people you need to please with too many important aspects of the agenda that the administration campaigned on that is actually pushing. And at the same time, it's not allowed to touch that non-discretionary spend, that discretionary spending, that Musk was cutting. It has to deal entirely with the non-discretionary. So that means the stuff that Congress no longer, or the executive no longer really has that privilege overseeing, the stuff that's baked in. And that's where we are. I'm hopeful. Courage is contagious. There's a mass movement of people and online autists and the rest who are really paying attention to this, who are doing great work, some of whom have been on this program, figuring out exactly what's going on. And, just keep in mind, as one lasting thing, Democrats are going to try and push that this is really insensitive, that this is an attack on the American people, that this is an attack on democracy. But this money is not going to the American people. You're very rarely seeing the actual benefits of this. And when you are, you're not seeing 1/10 of the money that was actually put into it. This is corruption. It's corruption in Washington. It's jobs programs for friends and allies and family. This is corruption of the highest order. You don't get to this high in debt, spending it on actually useful programs without having some kind of socialist paradise. It's completely insane. So this is a good thing for the Senate to tackle, the House of Representatives to tackle, and a good thing, I think, for the country.
So you mentioned the authenticity of politicians. The squishies on the right talk about, all Republicans talk about spending cuts and getting the budget in line and the debt in line, and they've done that for decades. So you're questioning their authenticity. The authenticity that I don't question in this equation is that of Mr. Elon Musk. I mean, I think what we're seeing from him is actually really authentic. And it's the disenchantment of many a soul who has tried to change Washington, D.C. When he said a bill can either probably only be big or beautiful, I think there's a lot of truth to that as well, right? I mean, if a bill is big, it's not going to be beautiful. It's going to have to be a compromise with a ton of mishmash in it. So here's the problem. We need Musk to not walk away. I don't think he will, and I know you don't either. But if you were advising Elon Musk right now and trying to talk him off the ledge and how he should think about this and what he should do, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that what we kind of just talked about, the difference between that discretion and non-discretionary, which I do believe he completely and totally understands. He's smarter than I am. I would talk to him about the importance of what the president actually campaigned on, which has not been something that Musk has ever really paid that close attention to. He liked the pushback against the social value insanity and the complete and total inquisition that was launched by the left over the last 8 years. He liked that. But from the first time he really started to appear on the campaign trail, and then later at Mar-a-Lago with President-elect Trump, he would repeat over and over again to anyone who would listen, we must be radicals for limited government. Now, love Donald Trump or dislike him, he's not a Ron Paul figure, except in that he's an outsider and a revolutionary of sorts. He didn't actually come to Washington to radically limit government. He's down for it. He likes it. He thinks that these are organs, essentially, the Democratic Party. But he needs this other money to be able to get through. Now, Elon Musk is probably disenfranchised a little bit because, or not disenfranchised, but he's feeling down because he's discovered what so many people, from Mr. Smith to Charles Koch to whoever who came to Washington to try and change things, who just assumed that the city simply wanted to do good, but didn't know how to. And if only they had someone from private business who was really intelligent and forward-looking, then they could make these cuts. That if only they had the tools and they felt the courage and they had the right people around them, that they could restrain government. The problem is, and I think he's realized this, and so many people have realized it before, is that that's not what people in Washington want to do. They want to stay elected. They want to spend money they didn't work for. They want to get rich on stock markets. They want to get reelected. I think I've mentioned that already, but it's important because that's really one of their main things is staying in power, which is why so many of them seem to die while in office. That's their focus. So what you need with these folks is not simply going to be, all right, I'm offering you a carrot. You need to play hardball. So Musk needs to talk about things like, well, I'm going to bring primary money to bear. I'm going to go after senators who aren't pushing what I would consider the Republican agenda. I'm going to go after those people who can't seem to find a cut anywhere. I'm going to go after those senators who say we can't possibly return to pre-COVID spending levels. Please, those people have to be high on his target list because what's going to move them is money being spent against them in their races. Now, that's the sort of thing that's going to make Republicans come out and openly attack and criticize Musk. Well, they've simply been quietly grumbling to reporters and grumbling to each other about how he's put them in an awkward position. That can get messy, but that's one of the ways that you actually shape the GOP.
Well, you don't have to be Elon Musk to be smarter than James Comey. Just about anybody out there in the country is, especially when he goes out and he tells us, oh, yeah, those seashells that I saw on the beach, they were 8647. I thought it was cute. So I took a picture, right? This is the former FBI director. This is what he wants us to believe. But he didn't stop there. We need to believe him when he tells us about what he thinks about Republicans. Let's watch.
Is the law enforcement system and the legal system equipped to deal with what we're seeing now?
Probably there could be changes at the margins, but in the main, we have the tools. There are cultural impediments to doing this work. Let's say you work in the FBI. You know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent at a minimum. And so why would you want to throw your career on that side of the line and be summoned to Capitol Hill to be asked, why are you pursuing these innocent groups? And so we have a cultural impediment to working it effectively that should get more attention than it does.
Why should you be the former FBI director and going on television just months after you're no longer in this job and feel free to go out there and just say, oh, you know, that other political party, they're white supremacist adjacent, Bedford?
And do so on a leading mouthpiece and known liar for the last administration, who has since been disgraced for the complete and total cover-up that she was the face of the president's soup brain. This is really bad optics, but it's just another example of something that we've talked about. I love it. This should be open. This should be conversation. The left should admit freely, I think you're a Nazi. I'm a director of the FBI who persecuted the president, who undermined presidents I don't agree with, who operated as a deep state or sort of shadow government. I am old enough to remember a time where Republican senators and Republican congressmen claimed that James Comey was above reproach. How dare you criticize him? If you to criticize James Comey and the FBI in Washington, D.C., it's to criticize the people who brought down Bonnie and Clyde. It's to criticize the guy with the badge who's taking shots in the street from the burglar, the person who goes in to break up domestic assaults, the person who frees child sex slaves. That's how it got portrayed. And when Donald Trump first ran for office, you would still have arguments around the dinner table at family gatherings about whether or not the media was biased. All of that's out the window. Nobody's pretending the Green New Deal is about the environment. They're openly admitting it's about economics. We don't have to claim it anymore in the pages of the Blaze or the pages of Daily Caller because the Democrats will just say it. You don't have to say that the FBI director secretly thinks that you're a scumbag or that you're a knuckle-dragging Klansman, because he'll come out and say it openly. And that is just wonderful. There's no more argument about the existence of a deep state. There's no more argument about the corruption at the FBI. There's no more argument about the complete and total disdain that the elites of the United States hold us in, because it's open now. And that courage is great. Come out there and say it, and let the American people actually make a decision based on what they see, what they hear, and how they feel.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Comey is the ultimate figure for what you're talking about, for that reduction to the absurd of this sort of normie-con establishment, we respect the institutions deal, because he was the one, as you say, I just want to highlight, he was the one people would say, well, look at him. He's a good guy. He's actually on your side. How dare you do anything? And the FBI stood for exactly what you're talking about in everyone's mind, to be fair, right? Until this happened. But it's a great point that those remarks reveal all.
The masks are off. Go ahead, Bedford.
Well, thank you guys. I absolutely, and you know what? No, I don't feel like anyone's giving you quite the credit yet, Ms. Savage, from Musk Watch TV.
Oh, thank you.
That was a humdinger. That was great.
Thank you. You know what? I expect a humdinger out of you tomorrow when we see you back here.
I'll see you then.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll have Jason Buttrill on the show right after this. There's a story that you need to know about. It's about grit and redemption and all the old-fashioned family values, and you can see it on the big screen. It's coming from Angel Studios. You know them. They're from The Sound of Freedom and The King of Kings. Right now, they have The Last Rodeo. It's an action-packed story of a retired rodeo legend who straps it back in for one last ride, risking it all to save his grandson. He's the oldest rider to ever enter the arena. And it's all about healing broken bonds, facing the past, and proving that real courage means fighting for the people that you love. It's raw, it's heartfelt, and it might just leave you tearing up under that cowboy hat. So theaters are selling out fast. Go get your tickets now at angel.com/Jill for your seats for The Last Rodeo. It's in theaters right now. So get your tickets today at angel.com/Jill. That's angel.com/Jill. Well, it seemed like tensions between Russia and Ukraine were cooling after the two sides attended peace talks in Istanbul, but Russia just launched a drone attack blitz over Kiev over the weekend, killing and injuring dozens of civilians. President Trump berated Vladimir Putin in response.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Mr. President, what do you want to do about that?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake. All right, any other questions? I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it. That's all I have to say.
Here with more is Jason Buttrill. He's our resident Marine. He's a former DOD intelligence analyst and the head writer and researcher for the Glenn Beck program. So, Jason, walk us through this, right? Because everything that we know is now, it feels like everything's in flux, right? We see that there was the open line of communication with Putin before the attack. And where do things stand for the administration right now?
I think Trump knows exactly what's going on right now. I think he's doing exactly what he should be doing on the global stage, playing this part. And it's a giant negotiation. I think that I will start off with this. I think that what he has started is already on the path of success, major success. Two things that are happening revolved around the central overarching theme of what the Trump administration wants to get done, which is to have us not being the first responders in places, like Eurasia or the Middle East or wherever, and have the regional powers be the first responders. Already, based off of the way the Trump administration has been handling things, it's been a success. For one, did you hear that Germany just deployed 5,000 permanent soldiers to Lithuania? This is Germany. Like, they don't do that, because there's a little bit of a historical precedent for them deploying troops. They don't do that. Europe does not like them doing that because of those historical precedents. But Germany did that, not because Trump asked them to, not because NATO asked them to or approved of it, or not because this fanciful thing called Europe, which doesn't even really exist. There's a bunch of, there's a continent, but there's a bunch of, it's comprised of 40 plus nations within that area. They did not ask them to do that. Germany did it. Why? Because now they're having to rethink the entire chessboard. The regional powers have to be the ones that control the destiny. So that's one of the things that's happening, and it's proceeding along Trump's pathway to success here. Number two, we're in negotiations for peace, which 2 years ago, 1 year ago, that's unheard of. It's historic what's happening right now. They just Russia and Ukraine just exchanged 1,000 prisoners. That's unheard of. There's still a timeline with, I think, a 7-point plan for peace that the Trump administration has handed them. They're still proceeding along that timeline. One of the problems with that is there was no time restrictions in that timeline. So they can drag this out, but they're going to. Now, this is the hard part about this, and you're going to see this a lot. You're going to see news stories come out saying, well, Germany is just, green lighting long distance missiles to shoot inside of Ukraine. Yes, we know. We also know that what you don't hear about, because this is not in the media as much, but hundreds of drones are flying deep inside Russia and striking inside Russia. It's happening every single day. The same thing is coming back over from Russia into Ukraine. It's happening every single day. The hard part right now, and you're seeing in that one clip you just played, Trump is playing that part where there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be points where possibly even Trump, Putin, and Zelensky all sit down at a table together. That could happen. I would not be surprised at all. And at one point, they're all going to stand up, pissed off at each other, flip each other off, and all walk away. It's going to be show. Because at this point, Russia knows they cannot win this war. They can't. Russia is pretty much this was their big coming out. I guess maybe their first big coming out militarily was Syria. That failed. Now that that regime is toppled. Then their second big one was to take Ukraine in 3 days. That failed. They're now in a stalemate. Somehow Russia has to look like the big tough guys. They have to make it look like Vladimir Putin won here. But the same thing has to be done for Zelensky. He has to be made the big winner and that he won here. And we want to get something out of this as well, because we've invested about $7.8 gajillion into it with nothing in return. Everyone has to at least walk away from the table when this is all said and done and say that we won. Now, that's the issue. That's the hard part. And you're going to see, like I said, multiple setbacks, but it is going to happen eventually. But we're on that path, which is amazing.
So let's explore that a little bit, because there certainly is a line of thought that, well, out there among, some unserious people and some serious people, that there is really no easy path to peace here, or that this is almost impossible to solve because Putin won't stop. Macron came out over the weekend saying, well, I'm glad that Trump has learned that Putin lied to him.
Did he say that before or after he got his face slapped by his wife?
Right. Which may invalidate anything he says. But let's give him that piece. I love when the hand came back, by the way. And that slap, and then it's there, and it's like, oh wow, this is ongoing. So Macron's saying like, oh, almost as if to say like, well, he bamboozled Trump, right, or something, and now Trump realizes that he's a liar and he can't be dealt with. So there certainly is this case that you can't actually deal with him, and then you get different explanations. Like one is, well, look, Putin is mad, so of course he's going to bomb them because of assassination attempt or attempts on his life. You get, they're close to getting all the area where the rare earth is, and if they can continue to do that a little bit, then they'll stop. So there's certainly a lot of narrative out there that says this is extremely difficult and maybe not possible.
It's old thinking, and it's exhausting. And it's the same minds like people like Zbigniew Brzezinski back during the Cold War, that they were the ones that, advocated for, now that the Soviet Union is gone, we need to press NATO into as many countries as possible, into as many places that we can think of. Why? The whole purpose of NATO does not even exist anymore. Yeah. It doesn't. And I'm sorry, like when they keep saying, but Russia won't stop. They're going to push into Poland. Are you kidding me? They can't even take Ukraine. They can't even take Ukraine. Ukraine in the beginning was fighting back basically with farmers on tractors, and they could not take Ukraine. So what then are you scared of? What are they going to have power to go and invade a country that does have an advanced military like Poland? They're not going to do it. So then you have to say, okay, well then Putin's just crazy. He's just doing this because he's crazy. No, he is not. Can we all just sit back and say, okay, obviously we don't like the guy. We don't think he's a good guy. I don't. We can agree on that. We don't. But he is leading a nation that has interests. And their interests, when they tell you what their interests are, we should listen. Mm-hmm. We should not come to the table and say, okay, well, he's just nuts, and we don't think that he has a reason for doing what he's doing. Of course he has a reason for what he's doing. I think it was yesterday, I think they reiterated again that one of their primary reasons for doing this, or even stopping the war, was because they don't want another expansion of NATO. Mm. Well, Can you flip the map around, right? Let's say there's a RATO, the Russian treaty organization, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, and they suddenly are in Canada, Mexico, they're in Cuba, they're in Puerto Rico, they're in the Dominican, they're all these places. How would we respond?
They're like, you should just be okay with that.
It's all good.
It should be fine.
It's all good. We don't think you're trying to invade us. Guys, come on. You do not have to be called, you don't have to call somebody a Russian apologist or a Putin lover, whatever nonsense that is, to acknowledge that. Foreign leaders and countries have interests, and they respond and act in accordance with those interests. When we fail to even listen to them, bad things happened, like the invasion of a country like Ukraine, where hundreds of thousands of people are dying. It's a tragedy. And it's old thing. So to answer your question, Matt, sorry, it's a tragedy that they're still pushing that same crap when we could be going towards a peaceful negotiation and resolution on this.
All right, there's this old saying. It's called once KGB, always KGB. Now, I want to know if that's true with Al Qaeda, because Donald Trump just went over and had that big Middle East trip, and he met with the new current president in Syria, who was once, quote unquote, once Al Qaeda. Are we believing this, or do we think maybe we should look into this a little bit more?
Jill, you just took this conversation into way complicated waters when you said Middle East here. I mean, this is a different animal, but the same strategy, I will say. Now, let's back up. This is not a new, like, they are normalizing relations. We are normalizing relations with Syria. The Israelis, even though they don't want to admit it, and the Syrians don't want to admit it, are also talking to each other. Yes, I would agree with you on once Al Qaeda, probably always Al Qaeda. I don't think you can take the Islamist out of the dude. You know, that's always going to be there. But this strategy has been done before under Reagan in the early 80s. Back in the 80s, the Syria of the time was Iraq, and Iraq was fighting Iran. Iraq was a designated terror-sponsored nation back then. Reagan pulled that once it looked like they were going to lose the war with Iran. So we started funding Iraq, took off that pesky little terror designator, and said, "Oh, we do screw it." You know, like we're going to forget that for a little while. So we gave a young up and coming leader named Saddam Hussein, gave them a bunch of weapons so they could fight the Iranians.
Smart.
Right?
Let's do that.
But then the Iraqis in this up and coming Saddam Hussein started winning this little war. So we were like, crap. Where are the Contras these days? Do they have any weapons? And so we started, let's fund both sides. So we did fund both sides because remember the overarching principle, let's have the regional powers in the area check one another so they don't become too powerful and get all nutso, and we don't have to be the first responders in the area. I think this is the exact same strategy that's happening in Syria right now. Obviously, this Islamist, al-Jawlani, I don't know what he's calling himself now. I'm going to call him as nom de guerre. Yeah, screw it. He's al-Jawlani of Al-Qaeda. He's still a bad guy. No matter what suit he puts on, he's still a bad guy. And the Israelis know this. We know this. This is something we're tolerating so that the regional power does not become an Iranian proxy again, and we have to get fully involved. This is what I think is happening in the Middle East. Will it have an opportunity or a chance to bite them in the rear? Yeah, it could, because Saddam Hussein later became very, very bad, and it bit us. So
yeah, I don't know if you're convincing Jill on this one, but I will say there is something to the fact that America really hasn't fully engaged its foreign policy in the Middle East until we are paying for bombs coming from both sides. Right?
Yeah,
I mean that's like the meme.
The old meme.
You need to see the bombs coming from both sides, and then you know. But this sounds plausible to me that this is part of the strategy, which is it's all about Iran, is what you're saying, and it's all about saying we don't want them to go over there. We'll promise goodies and that we'll be nice, and we know you're a bad doggy, but if you come over here, we'll make sure that you're not going to go over to the other side. Okay, but I guess the problem with that would be we don't exactly have a track record of success in this region.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we could say, I'd be willing to say maybe what Trump has done and what Israel has done in terms of shifting with Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, we've seen that in the last 10 years. And that's been successful, I think we could say, right? I think all sides would agree.
Yeah.
But Syria, I guess on the other hand, what's the alternative, Jill? I mean,
I know that Syria was one of the big things that the Gulf, Arab kingdoms wanted Trump to do. They wanted to, and in the end, they hold the money and they hold the possible funding for people like this leader. So, I mean, look, I don't like it. I hate even talking about it because then I feel dirty.
Welcome.
Right?
You're welcome.
But thanks a lot, Jill.
Yes.
But so it's very complicated.
Jason Buttrill, reading Blaze News tonight and feeling dirty.
But I think I know that there has to be an off ramp for the U.S. in being the first responders. This is the only kind of foreign policy that can let us disengage. The problem is that this kind of meddling, typically, it's like, I don't know, it's like quantitative easing. Eventually, it's going to bite you down the road. You like that?
This is my topic.
I know, yeah.
This is how. This is yeah. You are not convincing her even more now.
In the last minute or two that we have here, let's go with another topic with all the Qatari money that they're throwing around right now. I know that they're in the U.S. colleges, but let's look specifically at Air Force One. What is your take on this? You're never gonna come back on the show after I make you answer this question. The floor is yours.
The Qatari airplane thing is such a bullcrap narrative from the media. It's so infuriating. I cannot believe I could run down a list that's probably 10 pages long of foreign governments that have supplied or gifted certain things to different administrations, and it's never been a talking point. Ever. Never been a talking point. I mean, how many different speeches and stuff did the Clintons get? Well, yeah, even still, while they were probably through the Clinton Foundation, while they were in power, it's so ridiculous. The double standard is dumb. I don't see this as an issue at all. I don't think anyone that's being intellectually honest sees this as any kind of issue at all. I do think that Qatar is beyond, outside of that part from Qatar is not an issue. I do think that Qatar is somewhat of an issue going forward later on down the line. They're part of the whole WEF globalist, they're part of that agenda. And for some reason, they have really signaled or I don't know, spotlighted Qatar as part of their, avenue of change. So I don't trust anything that comes out of Qatar. They're also one of the biggest sponsors of the Muslim Brotherhood. Funding terror going through places like Turkey, all the other different places within the Middle East. So they are a worry, but the jet, not a worry. That's ridiculous.
The whole segment is felt cute, might delete later, right?
Right.
They're everything's fine right now.
Yeah.
We might change that all in the future.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the Middle East for you. I mean, I don't really the only way that they're ever going to come up to any kind of lasting peace with in the Middle East. There will never be peace in the Middle East, but something that kind of resembles it, I guess, will be some kind of cooperation between the Gulf nations and Israel. They have to work it out, and they have to see it that it's all mutually beneficial for all of them. What does that sound like? Kind of like the Abraham Accords, right? Kind of like the Biden administration should have expanded on that and not have crapped all over it once they got in power.
Jason Buttrill, thanks for trying to make sense of that for us. I appreciate it.
Sure.
We'll be back with more right after this. Well, another family farm could shut down. It's not going to be from a lack of hard work. It's because all the meat that you get in the grocery store is imported from overseas. Even that grass-fed beef that they say, no, it's from overseas. And shoppers have no idea. That's why you need to go to goodranchers.com, because you know that it's born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States. And you get to support real family farms. So you need to make the switch to Good Ranchers because it's tariff-proof. Everything is made right here in America. And Good Ranchers, they're going to stay consistent no matter what. Their prices, they're not unpredictable. Right now, actually, when you subscribe, you get your choice of free meat for life. You can choose between Wagyu burgers, hot dogs, bacon, or wings in every box. Plus, you can get an extra $40 off with my code Jill. Now, tariffs, they're not going to touch this deal, but it's also not going to last forever. So go visit goodranchers.com today. That's goodranchers.com. Use the promo code Jill. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. No one in the administration works harder than Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Instead of sleeping, Rubio actually took the time to place visa restrictions on foreign nationals who could have censored Americans. Rubio made this announcement on X, saying, "For too long, Americans have been fined, harassed, and even charged by foreign authorities for exercising their free speech rights. Today, I'm announcing a new visa restriction policy that will apply to foreign officials and persons who are complicit in censoring Americans. Free speech is essential to the American way of life, a birthright over which foreign governments have no authority." So, MP, when we look at this, why is Marco Rubio feeling that this is the time that this needs to happen?
Because Americans are being censored by other governments and even threatened by them. It's the threat. I mean, foreign governments are saying you did something illegal, right? And we're on the verge of having people. If you didn't do anything about this, put it this way, you would have people from other governments coming here and chasing people down and saying you violated, our policy and you should be punished, even though they're American citizens. And so what Rubio is doing here is really planting a flag for the natural rights of every American and the importance of free speech, which, as he says, is essential to our way of life. This is a civilizational issue. And it's sad that it came to this. But in the West, even with other Western governments, we have, your free speech is illegal there. And if they charge you or go after you, that's a problem. So the appropriate response, perfectly appropriate response, is to say at the very least, those people who are doing that, you can't come over here. You're not allowed to come over into the United States of America anymore. And the practical reason would be, what if these people start coming over and and trying to punish people here? But it's just a very common sense punishment. And it's sad that it's come to this, but boy, it really has come to this.
And we are actually taking a closer look at all of the foreign students that are coming in with the student visas. And we're saying, hey, maybe we should actually look and see what they're posting on social media before we just let them into the country right now.
Yeah, the idea that we just let everyone in who wants to come to college to America is really bat crap, crazy insanity. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. No, we don't want, all of our schools filled with foreign nationals, and you don't have a right to be able to come here to go to college or for any other reason for that matter. We get to decide. Americans have the right to decide who we allow come into this country and who we don't. And this is not, anything other than our exercising our right as Americans to let in who we want and not. So you can't pay attention to these people who are just used to us letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry in to go to college here as if that's some kind of right that the rest of the world has. That's crazy.
I love it. Actually, I think this number is low. If I had to guess, I would guess this number would be much higher. But the total percentage of foreign students that go to Harvard is 23%. And we've been talking about Harvard, and President Trump has been talking about Harvard. And I love what he said today. He said, quote, "Harvard is treating our country with great disrespect. They want to fight and show how smart they are while getting their, I'll say, butts kicked." I love that he is still out there on the rampage against Harvard because they deserve it.
Yeah, so here you have the privilege of going to Harvard, which is getting a degree that sets you up for leadership across the entire world for the rest of your life. And 1 in 4 of them are foreign students. Do you see what's going on here, people? I used to teach in these colleges. They love foreign students because they have to pay full freight. They have to pay their way. And so they want that money. But what's happening to American education? It's terrible. And Trump is going after them for a very good reason. They deserve everything that he's giving them. But we have to get to the point where we both, like Rubio is doing, defend Americans from potential infringement of their rights abroad and people who are threatening them and their free speech by saying you can't come in here, and just being more judicious about who we allow to come in. And this is common sense for most Americans, but it's not common sense for most elites, sadly.
I wish that Marco Rubio would comment on Caitlin Clark. I don't know if he has any free time in that, but I do want to wish Marco Rubio a happy birthday. We'll be back and wrap the show up with some fake racism with my girl Caitlin Clark right after this. You know we're winning. We were just talking about all the good things that are happening right now in the administration. Of course we're winning, but we do have a long ways to go. And that's why Blaze TV exists. We need to keep pushing. We have all the bold voices and all the great reporting. So when you actually subscribe, you're not just watching Blaze TV, you're standing with a movement. And right now, it's just $8 a month when you use the code BNT at checkout. So go to blazetv.com/BNT right now and use the promo code BNT and save an additional $20 off an annual plan. Let's keep winning together. It's Blaze TV, unfiltered, unafraid, on demand. You'd think with the increased viewership, all the game attendance, and the merchandise sales, you'd think that Caitlin Clark, she is the most popular player, but she's actually the most hated player also in the WNBA. And the latest piece of this story involves a debunked claim of racism from the Indiana fans that was supposedly directed towards the Chicago Sky players. So I posted on X, I can't take it anymore. Will the WNBA allow Caitlin Clark to lead them into the mainstream, or will they continue to self-sabotage? And I absolutely love that people went out there on a limb with me. So let's start with Keith, who writes that the WNBA is like Republicans in Congress. Will do everything possible to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory every single time. And that's the way to start it off, Keith.
Seems very true. Of course, the question is, like Republicans in Congress, are they doing this because just deep in their hearts, they're just intrinsic losers? Or is there some ideological reason that they're doing this?
Our own Steve Dace weighed in. He wrote that no one can rise above their own worldview. They will never accept Caitlin Clark until she, quote, marries a woman and then consummates the sacrilege in full view of public as part of the halftime show. That can't be brought out of their religion like we can ours. You know he's always going to come with the hot takes.
Well, he suggests strongly that the reason is the WNBA has a certain ideology, a certain religion, and they need her to bow down before it.
They do. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with Weston, who says the league wants to stay in a bubble that they created for themselves for the past 2 decades. That's why the players have publicly rejected the arrival of Clark's fan base and continue to prop up a Marxist organization like the Buy Larger Mansions, BLM. And the women's version of Jordan has been gifted to them, and they don't know what to do with it. They want nothing to do with this.
What do you think the reason is?
We all know what the reason is. If she was out there just as the lesbian savior that they wanted her to be, if she was out, and she has no problem with it, guys. Like, she's not everything that they're trying to make her out to be. But it's so funny to me because there are other white female athletes out there. They have no problem with them. Paige Beckers is the latest one that they're like, oh, you know what? She's going to actually go out there and be the new face of the league. Diana Taurasi is going, oh, she's going to be, when it's all said and done, she's going to be the one that people can really get behind. And other people are just like, oh, she's going to be the best pure scorer of the league. They want anyone but Caitlin. So they're like, you know what? We'll find another white girl to prop up. It'll be Paige. We'll just put everybody on the Paige show. It's so annoying that they can't just embrace Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an insane lesbian Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what? Marco Rubio didn't weigh in, but we do have our friend, Senator Jim Banks of Indiana. He weighed in. He actually goes through and says that Angel Reese owes the Indiana fans an apology. See, Jim? You get me. He actually quote tweeted Clay Travis. It says the WNBA announces that after the investigation that found no racist comments from Indiana fans, shocker, I know, Angel Reese lied. She's the Jussie Smollett with worse shooting percentage. Still no comment on Brittany Griner's blatant racism, though. So if you haven't been following along with the WNBA, and you probably haven't, Brittany Griner went out and she said, effing white girls. On the bench, and they actually caught it. The TV cameras caught that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, where is the response from the WNBA for Brittany Griner? Because we know that one happened. We saw that with our own eyes. Yet we have to go through and have an investigation. We must look into the fact that there might have been, perhaps, maybe, some fake racism that went on against the Chicago Sky players because Angel Reese who says, oh, I don't want to be the mean person here. I don't want to be the person that everybody's, propping me up to be. Yet time and time and time again, she is always that person. Every single time she is given an opportunity, she's like, oh, that's racist.
Well, yeah, it seems to me like it is more than lesbian, just lesbian Mean Girls. It's also some real nasty race hatred going on here, and I think you all are crying out into the up to the sky about it. How does this end? Is what I wonder, because these people seem very set in their ways. I mean, they hate her. And the more talented she is, the more they hate her, right?
Yeah, and they keep running people on her, trying to give her hard fouls. And now Caitlin Clark, you're welcome, WNBA. She's out for 2 weeks with an injury. We'll see how the ratings go, and we'll see if you change your tune when Caitlin is sidelined with an injury. But you know what? Senator Jim Banks, he's kind of living the life that I want to live. Now, I don't really have like professional sports teams. I'm not like a huge fan. After covering it as a sports reporter, I never really got into like, oh, this is my professional team. Growing up in Iowa, we didn't have one. I mean, obviously, I'm going to follow Caitlin Clark to the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Pacers are my team right now. I'm friends with their GM. He's also from Iowa, so there's your connection. But then Jim Banks is just throwing up pictures, living the dream right now. He was at the Indy 500 over the weekend, and I'm like, you know what? Somebody out there, he's doing this right. If you're in the state of Indiana, like, lean into it, Jim. I fully support this. I'd be doing the same thing.
Oh, yeah. It's great to see Senator Banks enjoying his role as senator, going to the Indy 500, et cetera. Not like he hasn't been to these events before as a congressman, but there's Indiana right now. I mean, there's something going on there sports wise. So that is interesting. And it's a great state, and he's a great senator.
There's something in the water in Indiana right now. But if you do want to go to an Indiana Fever game without Caitlin Clark, congratulations, it's going to be a little bit cheaper for you right now. Ticket prices have actually dropped 71% already on one of the sites without Caitlin Clark for the next Fever Sky game. For the big rematch, the Angel Reese, I'm sure, will be dying to go up against a team without Caitlin Clark on it.
I don't know. It sickens me. The whole thing sickens me. And you can just see it when you see these clips every damn week. There's some story about her being basically persecuted and them trying to raise a stink. And it's just, when I look at it, it's like, I don't know how this ends. Like if your kid was in a league like that, right? You'd be like, we got to get you out of here because you're going to get hurt eventually, So I don't know. I mean, I don't follow this stuff, but I wonder how it ends.
At some point, I'm going to make you, I've already made you listen to some Taylor Swift songs. You're okay with this?
I will admit that. Yeah, no, I totally admit it. I was like it's like doing research.
Yeah.
Something I've missed out on for how long she's been doing music since the first few albums.
The next goal is to get you to watch some Caitlin Clark basketball.
That will be an interesting sociological experiment. Yes.
It's fun. She's good. There's a reason that the people hate her. You have to watch it, if nothing else, for the cultural phenomenon that is happening.
Is there some way to turn it into a drinking game, or is that possible?
We can figure something out. Thanks for watching tonight, everybody. Thank you for letting me rant. I needed to get that off of my chest. We'll be back here with more from The Mandate tomorrow night.